Welcome back to Green Shift, the climate podcast from Skift. I've been talking to Francois Le Doze, the Chief Commercial Officer at Eurostar, in a two-parter about rail's role in helping travel reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. In the last episode, we focused on how rail compares to aviation in terms of emissions, and how the industry is performing across Europe and the world. In this episode, we're continuing that conversation. I wanted to understand why rail in Europe still feels so fragmented, and why there seems to be a messaging problem, and what it will take to expand it and make it better. One of the issues with rail is that with flying, it's so easy to just go online and find a ticket and just book it. Even if you have to change flights, it's just one thing, one ticket. With rail, it often feels fragmented. Oh, okay, I need to go to Frankfurt. I want to go on the train. I need to book to Paris. Then I need to change to something else. And how easy is it now to book your whole trip through one platform?
In recent years, we've noticed that people want to do that. They want to go further than train, and very often it means several operators. Most of the time, two operators. So now on Eurostar.com and on our app, you're able to book in one single bookings journeys into France with SNCF, journeys into Germany with Deutsche Bahn, and also within journeys to Switzerland with TGV Lyria as well. In the UK, we haven't got it on our website yet, but we have some great partners who can do that. So we work with Trainline, with Omeo. So these guys are amazing at connecting different operators. Yeah. But we're on our way. It's really our intention to be able to sell more and more connecting journeys, because that's what people want. And beyond the selling of the tickets, people also want reassurance that this is going to be okay. And we want people who have never tried that before for fear of missing the train or getting lost. We want them to try out. We are talking a lot more about it now. I've noticed that people, all they want is to be reassured that it's going to be okay.
How do you collaborate with other travel businesses, operators such as OTAs and search engines? You can search for hotels, airlines. Rail come up? If I was to put in London to Amsterdam in a search engine, would rail come up as an option?
On Google search for travel. So what is Google Flights? If you search London, Paris, Brussels, London, Amsterdam, you will now see the option of rail next to the options of air, obviously. So obviously this is great because it allows to showcase and compare both prices, times, the frequency of service. So it enables us to be visible, to be there alongside air travel. We also work with OTAs. We've mentioned OTAs such as Trainline, which obviously are very much focused on trains, but Omeo, for example, is another platform. They don't only work with rail, they work with other modes of transport as well. So obviously we'll be there alongside other modes of transport. So I think rail is more and more present in terms of search results into those comparison platforms. And it's only going to get more and more. It's only going to get better because you have more and more competition in the rail sector. You have lots of countries now that have competition on their domestic network. There is competition on international trains as well. So you really see that those platforms and those search results on Google are going to be more and more about rail and a little bit less about flights when it comes to short-haul search.
Is it possible to kind of, through Eurostar or any OTAs that you work with, to get kind of integrated packages, like including your hotel and your ongoing travel or whatever it is that you might need on your...
Yeah, so we have Eurostar Holidays that offers packages with train, hotel, activity, insurance. So all this is on Eurostar.com as well as on our app. So we work with a selection of curated hotels in all of our destinations. We know that people who travel with us a lot of them for leisure. They are going to a city they don't know. They will need accommodation. So they need a hotel most of the time. So we've been partnering with hotels and bed banks so that we are able to offer that to our customers directly, and usually at a price that is very compelling for a great selection of hotels. Because obviously we have great knowledge of the city that we operate. They are not numerous, so we don't give you 20,000 results for hotels just like some platforms do. We give you a list of hotels that we trust, we believe.
As you know the city so well and you can tailor your hotels, are you able then, I don't know if you do it already, but in the future favor more sustainable hotels and things like that?
Yeah, we showcase the more sustainable options of hotels on Eurostar.com. When people search for train plus hotel, we put common sections, and I think we put a mark to display it a little bit more obviously.
Yeah. The global conversation on climate change is always up and down, it's meandering. It becomes more and more politicized, and then it kind of dies down a bit. But one thing that doesn't seem to be going away is the clear changing of the weather, especially like in Europe. There's a lot going on with heat waves and what have you. Do you see the direct impacts of climate change as a risk on the business, such as storms, heat, and on the train lines and the infrastructure? And what are the conversations happening to make sure that it can adapt in the future to make sure that it's resilient?
Yeah. So just like any transport business, and you named a few of them, we are subject to, you know, when it's freezing cold, when there is a lot of snow or ice, a lot of winds, sometimes a lot of rain or floodings. Obviously, this is going to impact our operation. Heat waves as well as we've had more and more in the past few years. So this does impact our business. Usually what it means is that we have to slow down the trains. We have sometimes to cancel a few trains just to make sure that we're not packing too many passengers, too many trains when the conditions are very difficult. So first of all, in terms of how we operate, what we do to preempt this, to proactively make sure that we don't encounter problems when we know that these events are coming. It's a great collaboration between the network provider and manager who manage the tracks, the weather forecasts, our own teams, operational teams. And we've developed know-how in the past few years on how to deal with those crises. We had some really strong heat wave a couple of years ago in the UK and on the continent. We learned a lot, and this summer we had very, very limited problems because we had heat wave, but we were really well prepared in terms of air conditioning on the train. How do we repair them quicker? How do we anticipate better? So there are things we can do to get better at dealing with those events. You know, at the other end of the spectrum, when it's snowing a lot, we're a lot more proactive now to slow down the train. It's really important to proactively slow down so that we don't encounter any problem. But more globally, it's really interesting to find out how other countries have dealt with those things. So if you think about Southern Europe, if you think about Eastern Europe for like more cold condition in Europe, there is knowledge that is shared between the manufacturers, between the operators in terms of how do you best operate those trains in some conditions that others have more experienced of. But generally, yeah, I mean, the climate change is a concern, and adverse weather is, I would say, taken a lot more systematically and seriously than it was maybe 10 years ago.
Are you worried about the tracks? Because there have been incidents in the past of, like, in extreme heat, tracks buckling.
Yeah, I think, again, as operators, we learn how to improve. The network, the infrastructure manager also learns about those events and try to prevent them better. There is better technology today also to notice issues. You know, if you think about drone, if you're about camera, if you're about AI, how this can help you manage the quantity of information you have across a network, and how do you digest that to make sure that you are on top of your network, basically. But yes, the risks are bigger and more frequent, and those heavy events, the whole sector has to adapt.
When we look at trends in travel and so on, there's a lot of reports over the last few years that show that sort of slow travel, more sustainable travel is really rising, and there's a lot of demand for shoulder season and things like this. Do you think all of that is true? Are you seeing, I mean, with your figures, clearly more people are interested in rail, but do you get behind that research and stats? Do you believe in them? Do you think there's going to be in the future more demand for more sustainable travel?
Well, I sincerely hope so. I think we are seeing today more and more associations, voices, people who promote slow travel. It's definitely a trend. It's something we see online, that we hear about. We see some, activists and people who are really into this. So it does exist. We do have customers that do that slow travel. A great example of, it's not always slow travel, but Eurail passes, for example, those passes that people visiting Europe take to then visit Europe by train. Usually this is quite long journeys. We see that these are extremely popular. We see more and more people taking up these and benefiting from slow travel across Europe. We see people having longer itineraries, longer journeys. Our partners, like Trainline, like Omeo, like Google, as we said, they also see more and more complex itineraries being searched for. We see the number of people looking for connections up on our website. So we can see that people are considering, and I think also there's probably something in the travel industry to promote this and to really find itineraries that offers that sort of slow travel experience. Let's call it a cruise by train. You take the time to visit, do overnight. One signal as well that this trend is true is the number of overnight trains.
I think. Does Eurostar have any overnight trains?
We don't have overnight trains because we specialize in high speed. You can connect from Eurostar to Paris to then take an overnight train in the evening. If we think about distribution, you will notice most of the time when you search for travel that require a connection, that we'll always be obsessed with showing you the best connection, the quickest one. But actually, you can also decide to take a really long connection.
Yeah.
Like, what if we arrive in Brussels now and we offered the onward connection to Germany only this evening, so that you have 4 hours to spare in Brussels. And sometimes that's also going to be a cheaper option, maybe, depending on demand. So the way that we sell and promote and inspire travel is really important.
I think the messaging is actually really, really important. But I just don't know if the messaging is quite right at the moment. Because still people think it's, I know we've been talking about slow travel, but Eurostar is actually fast travel, isn't it? But people still think it's more expensive and it's too much effort or whatever it is. But clearly more and more people are interested. So clearly maybe the messaging is getting across now. But what would you say is the biggest thing standing in the way of, because obviously rail is a key solution in decarbonizing travel, isn't it? What would you say is the biggest thing standing in the way of making sure that this solution, keeps moving forward, keeps growing, more and more people taking it up, traveling by train?
My answer is very clear on this one. It's capacity. If we can unlock the capacity, and by capacity, I mean the size of stations.
Yeah.
The state of the tracks, making more trains going through the tracks, the tracks being in good condition, having the investment and the maintenance being done properly, having sufficient depot of trains just to do the maintenance. There's a capacity problem, and trains are very busy, they're very full. Our average load factor is close to 85%.
And how many trains a day are going out of St. Pancras then?
So we're going to have about 18 to Paris, 10 to Brussels, 5 of which to Amsterdam. So 30 trains out of London, probably. So yeah, I think capacity is a big issue. You need to unlock capacity. And then for operators, if there is that capacity on the network and sufficient capacity in station, then they need to have enough trains, rolling stock. And that is for manufacturers to produce those trains. We're talking about the big names of, manufacturers like Alstom, Siemens, Hitachi, Talgo, like all these guys, Bombardier. They have backlogs and they have, their order book are pretty full as well. So capacity is key. If you can grow capacity, it will respond to the demand that there is today. And if we can unlock capacity, the prices will go down as well.
I mean, there's only one tunnel, and that's the majority of like 50% of your traffic.
Yeah, the tunnel is actually not the biggest constraint for Eurostar. There is room in the tunnel for more. It's a lot more difficult to process people in stations. Eurostar tries to do is to run a mini airport. You need space, and you're in the city center, so we need the right space, the right layout, the right technology as well. If we think about border crossing, the more seamless, the more the states work together so that the controls are rational and not doubled up.
At the moment, you can only have so many trains an hour because of the space in the train station. You can't be having a train every 10 minutes because there's no space to deal with all these passengers.
And it requires investment from private companies. We can see that there are more and more train operators launching in Europe, challenging legacy domestic operators. It's very intense competition in Spain, in France, in Sweden, in Austria, in Italy for a very long time now. So there is money coming into the rail sector. So people are investing into the operation. We also need the investment in the infrastructure to make sure that this is following the increase that people want to operate more trains. It's the same for depot, for maintenance. Eurostar has a very specific depot for maintaining this very special train.
Yes.
If we have more operators coming through the Channel Tunnel, we need more space to operate. So it needs investment. Whoever invests, whether it be private or state-funded, it just needs investing. We can see that there's been some really good momentum recently with the UK government having a declaration of intent with the German government to have a direct link between the UK and Germany. The same is happening between the UK and Switzerland. So that's why we also have announced our intention to operate these routes to Frankfurt, to Geneva. But it does require all stakeholders to play their part. The government to make this possible in terms of border crossing process and treaty and resources.
Well, hopefully it won't be long, Francois, until we're on a train like this on the way to Frankfurt, talking about the new route. Yes. One thing's clear, there is a complicated road ahead. But if all the plans work out, there could be more high-speed rail routes connecting Europe in the future with faster, cheaper, and better connections. But with the news just out that China's high-speed rail network is about to reach 50,000 kilometers, there is a lot of catching up to do. As Francois said, it's going to take a momentous effort from everyone involved. Rail is complicated and expensive, but once it's built and all sorted out, it can support economies and keep them connected for decades. And if powered by clean energy, it has the potential to reduce transport emissions significantly. I also wanted to hear from governments and the European Union to understand how they see international rail and why aviation continues to benefit from fuel tax exemptions and what they are doing to support expansion. The UK government said it's committed to supporting the growth of international rail connections as significantly greener alternatives to flying. It pointed to new operators expected to enter the market and compete with Eurostar, which it said could result in cheaper fares and more choice. the UK is working with Germany and Switzerland to establish cross-border routes. But it didn't mention much about the infrastructure needed and if there are more operators coming. Where is the space? Where are they going to put their trains? The Netherlands government said it had already subsidized a night train from Amsterdam to Vienna in 2020, and that it sees international rail as an important part of reducing transport emissions. It added that it is investing in cross-border connections, upgrading lines to accommodate electric trains and make the system greener. And the European Union said that rail will play a crucial role in its decarbonization strategy, which is due out soon. While aviation fuel remains exempt from taxes, the EU said it plans to announce a proposal later this year for a European high-speed rail network linking capitals and major cities. Thank you for listening to Green Shift. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.